Louisiana native Lance Gidry just had a really good first year as Miami Hurricanes defensive coordinator. Now, LSU has a DC opening. Are they going to try to poach?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy almost Friday. I'm Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making this live episode of Locked On Canes, your first listen and your first watch today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're available free on YouTube. If you're watching us right now at 11 a.m. here on Thursday, you are watching live, so make sure you smash that like button and you subscribe to our channel, Locked On Canes, on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. It's amazing how a lot of Miami fans immediately just jump to the worst case scenarios on anything, okay? So Brian Kelly at LSU is cleaning house on the defensive staff because LSU's defense couldn't stop a nosebleed this past year, all right? So they've got an opening to the Tigers at defensive coordinator. The Miami Hurricanes have, a DC in Lance Gidry, who's from Louisiana, just had a really, really good year at Miami. You look at Miami's defensive numbers from 2022 compared to what Gidry was able to accomplish in 2023. Miami made a lot of jumps. Now, a lot of you guys have made the jump that, heck, with LSU now needing a defensive coordinator, they're coming for our Cajun. They're coming for Gidry. You guys want to exhale and relax for a second, okay? At this time, I am not worried for a couple of very important reasons about the Miami Hurricanes possibly losing Lance Gidry. I think Gidry is a Cane for at least another year, okay? The first factor is if you actually look at who LSU is pursuing right now, Gidry has not actually come up. His number has not come up yet on their list. The LSU Tigers, it's my understanding, are going hot and heavy for, ironically enough, a former Miami defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. He appears to be LSU's top target. Now, Blake Baker has he's done a lot better since his short time at Miami under Manny Diaz. He's the Mizzou defensive coordinator, and Missouri just had a fantastic year. Baker also had a recent stop at LSU. He was most recently their co-defensive coordinator. Ironically enough, he wasn't retained by Brian Kelly when Kelly took that job. So maybe now Kelly is saying, whoops, if I have an opportunity to do over, let's bring Baker back. And Mizzou, they have a top 25 scoring defense. They're near the top in most defensive categories, very improved with Blake Baker at the helm. So that seems to be the guy that LSU is zooming in on right now. And another reason why I could understand why, for as much as I love Lance Gidry, why I could understand why, at least for their first choice, why LSU would be prioritizing Baker over Gidry right now is Blake Baker has something that Lance Gidry does not have, and that is SEC experience, right? You've got a guy who's doing good things with the Missouri Tigers, and Brian Kelly already knows. Blake Baker knows this conference. He knows about all the opponents. He's coordinated defenses that have had success in this conference. I'm sure that's something very attractive for LSU, okay? So obviously, if for whatever reason they don't land Baker or Baker were to decide to stay in Missouri, then maybe our panic level will increase from like a 0 to like a 1 or a 2. Now, also with Lance Gidry, it's my understanding, and this was reported, I believe, yesterday by Mike Ryan from the Dan Le Batard Show, he's already signed an extension with Miami, which means a couple of things. Number one, you don't put pen to paper on an extension unless you're pretty happy where you are. And then number two, that also makes the buyout more expensive, right? For, if anybody, a big program like LSU were to want to poach Gidry, number one, he's already shown some desire to stay because you don't sign an extension if you're not happy where you are. And then number two, if you did try to lure this guy away, the buyout would be very, very expensive, okay? So at this time, I'm not worried about Lance Gidry being poached. And I think it's really, and I'd like him to stay for many years, right? But, knowing at least one more year with Gidry, because if he does really well again next year, guess what? He's going to come up in a lot more coaching searches from other programs. But a second year of continuity under Gidry, I think it's going to be really important. I like that he gets another year with Kiko Maui-Noa, who was one of the outstanding linebackers in the country, who's coming back for another year at Miami. Gidry does really good work with the defensive backs. He's a safety coach by background. And Gidry, the one-on-one work and the hands-on work that he does with Miami safeties is going to be really important heading into next year, because you've lost your two starting safeties. James Williams, Cam Kinchins, both headed to the NFL. So if you're looking at guys like Savion Riley, who's just come in as a transfer from Vanderbilt, Jaden Harris, Markeith Williams did pretty well in the bowl game. Caleb Spencer is a young safety, going to be looking for playing time. Zaquan Patterson coming in as a true freshman is going to be fighting for playing time. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of work Lance Gidry can do with that group. So, by the way, hello to everybody who's in the live chat right now. Hello to our guy Al. And Al, I think about our friend Warbeast every single day. Al is best friends with our guy Otto, who unfortunately passed away. And yeah, Chad, I agree with you here. Blake Baker, the reported front runner right now for the LSU job. Now, something else I just want to address. I don't think there's any smoke here, okay? But people have been talking about this on Kane's social media. So there was, I don't even know if I'd call it a report. I'd call it a rumor that came up on an Ohio State message board that Ohio State is trying to hire Jason Taylor away from Miami to go work under their defensive line coach. Basically they want him supposedly to do pretty much the same job here that he does over there. Now, I don't think there's any legs behind that, because first of all, I don't think Jason Taylor wants to go live in Columbus, Ohio. I think he's very happy, and he's got, kids and family down here in South Florida. I wouldn't really be worried about losing Jason Taylor unless it would be for either a defensive coordinator job in college football or for an assistant coaching job in the NFL. I think those would be the only ways Miami would lose Jason Taylor. And honestly, a little pathetic to see these Ohio State fans like clamoring to try to get Jason Taylor, because you know why they're talking about JT. Like, the reason why Ohio State people would be talking about trying to poach Jason Taylor, it's because he beat their butts on so many recruits. It'd be like, I think Miami should hire Brian Hartline. How about that? Why don't we hire the guy on Ohio State staff who takes all the good wide receivers? Ohio State fans want to hire Jason Taylor because he gets all the defensive linemen to come to Miami that decide to come here over Ohio State. Marquise Lightfoot, Justin Scott, the list goes on and on and on. So I don't believe that that's really a factor. Man, we have a lot to talk about on this episode. Miami basketball team had a statement win last night. I told you guys, when they had a couple bad losses earlier this year, I don't panic about a Jim Larinaga team until spring, right? January now, conference play. This is when the team starts to gel together. Big win over Clemson last night. An Alabama standout. Well, I'm not going to say an Alabama standout because he didn't play much there, but a former South Florida standout from American heritage, Earl Little Jr., is in the transfer portal. He is reportedly thinking of leaving Alabama. I'll tell you where Miami stands on that one. And, I want to talk about this quarterback situation, guys, because the point has been brought up to me, and it's a good one, that perhaps Miami's next transfer portal quarterback is somebody who's not even in the transfer portal yet. I will explain how that might work. So, folks, you know what we like to say here on Locked On Canes? We are only getting started on this episode. You want to keep it locked. Guys, I am only getting started on Game Time. When it comes to last-minute tickets, should not be a stressful experience. And it's not a stressful experience on Game Time because you're always getting the best deals on last-minute tickets with flash deals and zone deals. You get views from your seat inside the venue. You'll see a picture of exactly what you'll be looking at from your seat. Lowest price guarantees, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and so much more. And another thing, I don't mention this enough about Game Time. you get the upfront price, which means they're not going to slap you with those fees. Like when you're at checkout, like, oh, I think I'm getting $14 tickets, but it's like $45 tickets by the time. No. They give you all the fees, upfront pricing at Game Time. You know exactly what you're going to pay. And guys, the Game Time guarantee is so important. That means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same row and section for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So I'm looking at deals right now in South Florida. Upcoming home game for the Miami Heat against the Atlanta Hawks on the 19th. $66 tickets. Upcoming home game for the Florida Panthers against the Los Angeles Kings. $14 tickets, guys. WWE SmackDown later this month. $29 tickets at Kaseya Center. I'm telling you, check out Game Time, and you're going to thank me later. So, guys, create an account. Log in, create an account. Download the Game Time app. Create your account and use code LOCKEDON, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this live Thursday morning episode of Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're available free on YouTube. We're live right now on YouTube, so smash that like button and subscribe. And guys, this will not be our last episode of the day. We're going to be coming at you later this afternoon around 5 p.m. with our recruiting overlord, Brian Smith. Brian Smith was live at the Under Armour All-America game yesterday. He's going to join us later today to talk about it. I was watching the game on TV. Ryan Mack in the defensive backfield for Team Ice was awesome. Booker Pickett Jr., most outstanding defensive player of the game. These are Miami signees who are coming in as early enroll. Actually, Ryan Mack's not going to be an early enrollee, but these are Miami signees coming in as true freshmen. Booker Pickett was fantastic. We'll talk more about those guys later on today with Brian Smith, who was at the Under Armour game, and he was at the practices all week. Because, folks, you get a lot more from watching the full week of practices than you do the game itself. Because I know Adarius Hayes, who's another Miami signee, had a very quiet game yesterday, but he did a lot in practice. Same thing with JoJo Trader. JoJo Trader on offense, he played two ways yesterday. He had an interception on defense. On offense, he had a quiet game, but he had a full week of practice. So we're going to talk about all that stuff with Brian Smith later on today here on Locked On Canes. Former American Heritage standout defensive back who's been the past 2 years with the Alabama Crimson Tide, former top defensive back recruit, Earl Little Jr. He's entered the transfer portal. And of course, given the South Florida history, and there was definitely, I think there was some consideration for Miami, but the way that I understood it with Earl Little's recruitment, and remember, this was before Mario Cristobal arrived at Miami. Earl Little's father was, former NFL defensive back. Earl Little's father, senior, basically said, I don't want to send Junior to play for Manny Diaz. That's why they ended up leaving South Florida, going to Alabama, okay? Now, he's had a quiet couple of years in Alabama. That's why he wants to leave. Now, a couple important things to note on Earl Little, and just so you guys know, let me say this up front. I don't think he's going to end up being a Hurricane, right? But a lot of people are asking about him, so I wanted to talk about it. I don't think Earl Little, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to end up being a Miami Hurricane. So first thing is, Nick Saban hasn't given up. They're having a meeting today. The meeting might even be going on as we speak. Nick Saban and staff are trying to convince Little to stay in Alabama because they see him playing a big role next season as their third cornerback. He hasn't played much in the first 2 years. He could end up being the starter at the star position next year if he decides to stay at Alabama. So, we know this about Nick Saban. If he wants something, he usually gets it. So if he can convince Earl Little Jr. not to leave Bama, they're working on that as we speak. Now, Little also, he's got to visit a contingency plan locked in. He's scheduled to, unless Saban can talk him out of it. Earl Little Jr. is actually scheduled to visit Florida State this weekend. So, I mean, if you're a Miami fan, maybe the best outcome would be Saban convince that dude not to leave because he's scheduled to visit Florida State this weekend. And that reunion would make a lot of sense. Not a reunion with Florida State, but a reunion with Patrick Surtain. Florida State's defensive backs coach was his high school coach at American Heritage. strong ties and strong history there. So, oh, wow, fresh. I didn't know that Nick Saban is your dad. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. And again, I love how this happens every day in the live chat. I appreciate you guys listening and chatting, but every day it turns into an argument on the YouTube live chat of Miami fans and Florida State fans just bickering. Like, so we got these Florida State trolls like Louis T and DJ Ferg who come in here and talk trash every single day. So the live chat just devolves. But yeah, I mean, for the Florida State fans who are watching this, you guys are definitely on the radar for Earl Little Jr. I'm not sure if Miami is, so we'll have to see how that one plays out. Okay. Alabama also has a couple of other players who are, a bunch of other players actually who hit the transfer portal. They've got a quarterback who's a former 4 or 5 star. I think he was a former 5-star, Eli Holstein, who's in the portal, but he was just a class of 2023 guy, so he's got 4 years of eligibility left. I want to reiterate something that I said yesterday. Miami, we know, are looking at quarterbacks in the transfer portal. You've seen a lot of different names linked to the U. Some of the names being linked to Miami are guys like Jaden Mayava of UNLV with 3 years of eligibility left, or Malachi Nelson from USC with 4 years of eligibility left. I haven't seen Holstein linked, but in case anyone does try to link him to Miami, he's got 4 years of eligibility left. That's not what Miami should be looking for or is looking for, in my opinion, right? Because you already have a young quarterback room, right? Jacurri Brown, 3rd-year sophomore. Emory Williams, 2nd-year sophomore. Judd Anderson is coming in as a true freshman. It seems to me redundant to bring in a guy who's got 3 years or 4 years of eligibility left. I think if you're really looking to make a quick, immediate, short-term upgrade to the position, you need to be looking at guys like Jordan McLeod as a graduate transfer who can raise the ceiling of your quarterback room for 1 season. And then in 2025, Jacurri Brown, Emory Williams have that extra year of experience and seasoning, and they're more ready to take over. That to me is the solution. The solution to me is not adding a guy with 3 years or 4 years remaining. And listen, a really good point was brought up to me the other day, and I think Manny Navarro talked about this in his Wide Right podcast, and someone brought this to my attention, and it's a fair point. We talk so much about which quarterbacks are available in the portal right now. A couple things to think about. There is another transfer portal window that's going to be opening in April. Now, by that time, some of you are thinking it's probably just sloppy seconds by that point, all right? But you never know, because spring football, certain quarterbacks around the country are going to get an idea, where do I stand in the pecking order? Maybe there's not playing time here. I'll go find playing time somewhere else. So there is another transfer portal window in April. And also, I've done a bad job bringing this up on the show. Even though the deadline for normal undergraduate players was January 3rd at midnight, that was the deadline to enter the portal. That wasn't the deadline for graduate transfers. Graduate transfers can enter the portal at their leisure. So it is highly possible that the next Miami Hurricanes starting quarterback, or at least the next quarterback Miami is going to add through the transfer portal, might be somebody who's not even in the portal yet, folks. Because, yeah, there are some 5th-year guys out there who have already earned their degrees, who may still be contemplating or making that decision to take their talents into the portal. You know, there could be, not just with Miami, there could be conversations happening through back channels with NIL agents or family members or representatives. We saw that obviously happening. I can tell you it was happening. I believe it was happening with Jacurri Brown, that there were certain programs trying to get in touch with him. And we know it was happening last year with Tyler Van Dyke, that, conversations through back channels do happen. So perhaps the Miami Hurricanes transfer portal quarterback is not somebody who's even in the portal yet. Now, there's also, when you talk about some of these younger guys that are in the transfer portal, I think it's worth asking the question, with some of these names we bring up, like the Jaden Mayavas of UNLV, are these guys actually for sure better right now than Jacurri Brown or Emory Williams? I don't think that's a question you could really answer. Now, if you were to bring in a guy like that who maybe competes and possibly loses that competition, maybe you add just more depth, another backup, iron sharpens iron in practice. Maybe that's what you're looking for. But as far as like options who are definitely better in the short term than what you have right now. I think probably, one of the few players who would check off that box right now would be Jaden Delora of Arizona. But I'm not sure how interested Miami is in him because he did have some checkered off the field history in high school, a legal situation that I don't think has been fully resolved yet. So there may be some negative PR if you were to go after a player like that. Although, no one seemed to talk about it too much while he was at Arizona, but I guarantee you it would definitely be an issue if he were to come to Miami. And Miami's staff would need to do very careful vetting on that or any player you think about bringing in. Make sure the character is on point. Make sure, the past, the checkered pasts are in order, all that stuff. So, again, I'm not positive that Miami's next starting quarterback or Miami's next transfer quarterback is a guy who's in the portal right now, because graduate transfers, they have a longer time to actually make up their mind on that stuff. Okay. All right, folks, I want to read some of you guys' messages and comments when we come back. And I want to give some love to the Hurricanes basketball team, because everything about that win last night, everything about that felt good. If you're, primarily a football fan who's been kind of down and out because we don't have a quarterback yet and what's going on, at least you can feel good about the Hoops team right now. I know that there's been some rocky stuff earlier this season, but last night was fantastic. My friends, you know what you want to do? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this new episode of Locked On Canes. We're certainly not done yet on FanDuel. I've been having so much fun this college football season. We got one game left. We got that Natty, the national title game left. We have week 18 and the playoffs coming up in the NFL. Folks, you want to get on the FanDuel bandwagon. Yes, the NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on all that action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like same game parlays live. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular plays. If you're looking at the Miami Dolphins this weekend, Dolphins, we know, have had to deal with a lot of injuries. They're actually 3-point underdogs at home against Buffalo. So if you think the Dolphins are going to pull off the victory, you want to look at that at FanDuel. Think about putting that money on your Miami Dolphins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. By the way, some of you guys got so mad at me yesterday for it. Folks, I give you the news, okay? Obviously, I inject my opinions on things, but I tell you what's happening. I try to give you as much factual information as possible, and it is factual that Cam Ward does not have an NFL agent yet, and you don't forfeit your eligibility for college until you hire that NFL agent. He did accept an invite to the East-West Shrine game. However, Cam Ward didn't get a Senior Bowl invite, which is like, that should be a little bit of a red flag about his draft stock, because honestly, if they think you're a first, second, or third round pick, you probably get the Senior Bowl invite, not just the East-West Shrine invite. But it is factual to say that Cam Ward, even though he did make that video on Monday where he verbally declared for the NFL draft, he's not technically fully declared for the NFL just yet. And I brought it up yesterday because I had a conversation with an Auburn insider who notified me that he still believes Auburn is still pursuing Cam Ward, and they're still trying to negotiate, make offers, whatever that looks like. And I would just assume, and I have heard as much over the last, 18, 19 hours since our last episode, that Miami may not have given up there either. I just hope you're not allowing yourselves to get played for a second time in a week, right? Don't put all your eggs in the Cam Ward basket. If you can get a commit from another quarterback while you're still waiting on that dude to make up his mind, take a commit from another quarterback. Do not let him be Hans Gruber and turn your facility into the Nakatomi building again, where it becomes a hostage situation. Just play out the process however you can. And my guy Brian lays it down. He says, we need to move on. I can tell you, me personally, I have moved on. All right. We get this message from Eldridge. Eldridge is asking about the Liberty quarterback. You know what? I haven't seen too much concrete link yet between Miami and Caden Salter is the Liberty, who's dynamic. I mean, this dude, he rushed for 1,000 yards on top of having a really good passing season as well. I like Salter from Liberty. I haven't heard any like overly concrete links yet to Miami. I did talk about him a little bit yesterday. A lot of people just assume that Salter is going to end up at Auburn because Hugh Freeze recruited him to Liberty and they have a good relationship. My understanding is Auburn probably not going to make a run at Salter. So if Auburn doesn't, maybe Miami will. And also, big picture on this quarterback stuff. We talk about a lot of different positions, defensive backs that Miami might be recruiting. There's, Alabama has a pretty good offensive lineman who's in the portal now. Right now, I think Miami's staff is primarily focused on the quarterback stuff first. Doesn't mean they don't have, 8 arms like an octopus and they're working on a number of different things. But I think their primary focus right now is getting a quarterback. And also, I don't know how many official visits Miami has left. There's a finite number of those. They're either out of them or close to being out of official visits because Miami used up a ton of, they wrapped up a top 4 recruiting class, and a lot of official visits were required to make that happen. A lot of official visits in the transfer portal, including Cam Ward eating that prime 112 and the shrimp cocktail with Rick Ross. So, Miami's used up most of their official visits. We get this question about what's the deal with Howard, with Will Howard. Will Howard, I can tell you 99.9% Will Howard is an Ohio State Buckeye. I think he's already silently committed to Ohio State. He's visiting Ohio State officially this weekend, and that's when I would expect an announcement. I would expect either a Saturday or Sunday announcement, Will Howard committed to Ohio State. I don't believe he's still an option for Miami. We do know that obviously he was somebody Miami coveted just behind Cam Ward, but I think he's going to be ending up there. Rick Ross free meal. I'm there. There's the Florida State troll, Louis. Guess what, Louis? Don't talk too much trash because you guys also wanted Cam Ward, and that didn't work out for you. Instead, you end up with DJ Ukulele. So don't talk too much trash at us about that. All right, all right, folks. I try to tell you guys when the Miami basketball team suffered a couple of bad losses in November, do not panic. Jim Larinaga has had to replace some important players, team chemistry. I trust Coach L. Miami pulled off a statement win against 16th ranked Clemson. First ranked victory for Miami, and they put it on the Clemson Tigers. They were down at halftime. Miami scored 60 points in the second half. They had 3 scorers over 20 points, which has never happened in Miami history, and they did it without Wooga Poplar. Right? Because a lot of us coming into that game up against a ranked team, no Wooga, how's Miami going to win? That was a symphony by Coach L and his players yesterday. Norchad Omier, that is my dude. I love him. Nigel Pack playing all those minutes. These guys are my absolute dudes, okay? So Miami should be ranked again as a result of this. Hurricanes had those bad losses. They've fallen out of the top 25. This is the type of win that gets you back into the top 25. And now that we're in January, now that we're in ACC play, tough road game coming up this weekend against Wake Forest, this has an opportunity for the Miami Hoops team to make us all forget about the struggles before January 2024, the new year. This is going to come together. And I know when our friend Hoodie Girl, when she watches this and she sees Donno's talking basketball without me, because Hoodie Girl is our Canes basketball correspondent. We are going to connect with Hoodie Girl again really soon. Hopefully this weekend she's available, and we'll talk more about the Hoops team. So thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For the everydayers, we love you guys. And hey, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, we keep the conversations going on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. I include the link in the show description below. You can click that link, sign up for the Locked On Canes Insiders. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours with breaking news, transfer portal and recruiting scoops, show updates and previews, one-on-ones. You guys can ask me questions on there. Oh man, I think we bored this dude with the basketball talk. Sorry to bother you today. We were talking 3 minutes of basketball, but sign up for Locked On Canes Insiders. Try it free for 14 days. Then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. If you don't like it, opt out, no sweat. We'll still talk on the shows. All right, so guys, we will talk again. Remember, later today, we're going to recap the Under Armour All-America game with Brian Smith. We'll talk about really good performances in the game from Booker Pickett and why Booker Pickett was so underrated as a recruit. This guy is out there dominating against 4 stars and 5 stars when he was a 3-star. Ryan Mack, another Miami signee, was out there blanketing 4 and 5-star receivers when he was a 3-star. We'll talk about their performances in another episode around 5 p.m. today with our recruiting overlord, Brian Smith. So we will talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.